Welcome again to the Carpenters Retirement Awareness Seminar. We like to call it in our presentation, Investing for a Better Future. I want to thank first and foremost you for being part of this and spending your time. Thank you so much. Also, the Retirement Board and the effort you do to put this together. It's just terrific, and we're honored to be part of this program. My name is Tom Crossett. I am a director at Pine Valley Investments. I've been in this business for close to 50 years, if not more. I am joined here by my friend, my colleague, my partner, Kate Fay. Kate Fay is a certified financial planner, what we call a CFP. And for those of you who are unaware, a CFP is a standard of excellence certification. It requires extensive training. It requires extensive work. Most importantly, it requires ethics and morals in that you have to subscribe to doing what's in the best interest of your client each and every day. We both work at Pine Valley Investments, local, right across the river, Marlton, New Jersey. We are a independent, which means we're not owned by an insurance company or a bank. We manage over $2 billion in client monies. We are private. Most importantly, we are a fiduciary in every capacity that we bring, be it investment advisory or financial planning. One question you might be asking yourself is, do I need an advisor? I mean, I would ask that question myself too. And the short answer is that you really don't. But I'm here to tell you reasons to consider why you might. I'm agnostic to this, but as Paul and Tim represented, you should find an advisor to help you, be it it's someone, a family member that's using somebody, or go out and find one. Highly encouraged. But not number one reason why is when you work with a financial professional, generally it makes you more confident in that you will achieve your financial goals. Don't just trust me on this. Fidelity Investments does a yearly workup on this, and they concluded that 70% of individuals on the verge of retirement will reach their goals without an advisor. Sounds terrific. However, those who do use an advisor, that number is 90%. Pretty compelling, if you ask me. Number two, good advisors, whoever they might be, help create a personalized and customized investment plan and financial plan. Number three, I think Joe mentioned this in his introduction, emotions. Think about your life and all the times that you had to make a decision where your emotions were involved, outside of asking your spouse to marry you. How often did those situations turn positive? We reduce the emotional baggage and help make better decisions. The numbers in the industry support that working with an advisor could add 5% per year to your portfolio returns when you're looking at longer period of terms, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Most importantly, good advisors provide you with a plan. They provide you with protection, not just for yourself, but for your assets as well. And mentioned earlier in the planning piece is your spouse and what they can benefit by working with an advisor. God forbid something happens to you. And we all know in a blink of an eye, we could be incapacitated or indeed maybe deceased. Next, we're going to talk about investment basics. Trying to keep this simple. Run through some terms and terminologies. But think about this as you're building a house. Like, where do you start? You start with blueprints. You start with an architect. In our business, how we start was with a risk assessment. We have to get to know your intricacies, what makes you tick, your income needs, your investment experience, your internal rate of return that you might want to achieve. That gives us a broad-based idea of how we need to proceed. And from that procedure of the risk assessment, we'll move into an investment plan. As some of you might know, is called an asset allocation strategy. And what we're trying to do there is how do we mix assets together that can create an optimal portfolio for you. And for sake of simplicity, what we're going to talk about are three primary assets: stocks, fixed income, bonds, and cash. We have the foundation in place with the plans, both the risk assessment and the investment policy. Next, we want to move forward to support and what we will call in this diversification. Diversification is simply the ability to use different assets within that classification to broaden out your risk tolerance and protection, if you will. So in terms of stocks, broad definition, there are US stocks, S&P 500, or there are foreign stocks. And then they are defined more simply by large cap, mid cap, and small cap. Bonds, very similarly, right? US bonds, foreign bonds. And then not by size, but more by maturity, there is short, 0 to 3 years. There's intermediate bonds, 4 to 7. And then there's long-term bonds, 7 years to go out to 30 years. Then there's cash, and cash as we know it, cash in the bank, but also money markets, CDs, T-bills, things of those nature. So we know what those tools are. Now the goal is, how do we put them together? How do we mesh them together to create that optimal portfolio? And that's what working with an advisor will do, is that you'll game plan what's the best way to go about that practice. We've built the house, right? We have the foundation. We put in this support. Now we have to move into the house. And so this next chart's more pictures now to, again, lead us along the way, is what's called goal-based wealth management. Short-term goals, medium-term goals, long-term goals. How do you build out those buckets to protect yourself, to make sure that when you do retire, that you could enjoy that standard of living that you believe that you're entitled to? So short-term goals, basically funded by income, could be wages, could be Social Security, could be pension, and other mechanisms, right? Medium-term goals, something maybe not expected, new car, college for your kids or grandkids, gifting, so forth and so on, wedding for young ladies or young men. How do you fund that? Well, maybe bonds, and maybe, but I always say have some stocks as well, because that's somewhat usually down the road. And finally, long-term goals, which is really trying to create your legacy, how to build that wealth so it will support you in the long run. If you look at these charts, you will notice something interesting, that as we go out the curve, as we get longer, the more equities that are involved. And the reason why that is one thing that you can't get away from and never will, is inflation. The cost of living is going to cost more tomorrow for a can of soda than it is today. How do you keep that pace? Really, there's only one way, one asset, and that are stocks primarily. But the bottom piece, I'm a great believer in history, and the fact that numbers repeat themselves on a repetitive basis. If you go back and look at this from 100, 125 years, you'll see returns of securities, again, stocks, bonds, cash, have been relatively similar. But I'm going to ask you to focus on the bottom piece of this chart, this range of stock, bond, and blended total returns, and look at that third little rung that has the 10-year rolling period of time. And we're talking about balancing risk, stocks, and bonds. There's a blue box there, 50% cash and bonds, and look at that return. 10-year period of time, maximum 16%, lowest plus 2%. On average, that 50-50 portfolio will achieve a 7% return, and that goes back to the 1950s. So keep that in mind. That will be important. So you're nearing retirement, going into retirement. How do you structure portfolios? Again, this is just being repetitive of the previous charts. Stable, which is income, pension, Social Security, et cetera, take care of the day-to-day expenses that you have mapped out. Then there are these variable spendings, new car, weddings, college education. How do you do that? Again, bonds, stable investment, kickoff income. I would argue due to inflation, you need to have some stocks as well. And finally, you have legacy. Again, your support mechanism to live a long and prosperous life. Stocks are the perfect mix there as well. Final chart before I pass this off to Kate is, how do you fund your retirement goals? Where's that money coming from? First thing that we need to do as an advisor, and what any advisor should do, is have a spend down rule. And in our business, we have what's known now as the 5% rule. It used to be the 4% rule, but now it's the 5% rule, which basically states that you can take 5% of your value of your portfolio every year, take that as income resource, and your portfolio value will not drop over time. And if you go back to what I said previously about the 7%, think about that, 50-50, you earn 7, but you're taking out 5. That 7 comes with some expenses. Let's say that's 1%. You still have 6, and you paid out 5. So it kind of proves out that principle, if you will. So you need to have that as a withdrawal strategy in terms to sufficiently support your lifestyle, because things aren't getting cheaper. Next, again, preserve your principal, having fixed income and bonds, and finally increasing wealth. Because you want to pass on more, we're going to need more to live, and that's why you need equities. And equities provide that balance to basically compete against inflation that, again, isn't going away anytime soon, as we found out. Some quick statistics I'll give you before I pass this off to my colleague, that stocks, S&P 500, as you know, I'm a proponent of equities and the use of equities in retirement. If you took $1 and put that into the Standard & Poor's 500, which is the largest 500 stocks, 1 year, there's a 77% chance it's going to be positive. 3 years, it's going to be 87%. And finally, 5 years, 93% positive. Don't be afraid of stocks. The number of positive years of the S&P is actually 73% of the time. So 7 out of 10 years, the market will be positive. We will face some tough years. Remember 2008, 2022, but the market does its thing. If you don't get emotional, you don't react, you work with an advisor, they'll steer you through this, and at the end, you'll be much better off for that. And finally, again, the annual return of the S&P 500 is 10%. So Kate will now talk to you about the financial planning side, how this is incorporated to ensure that you have a long-lasting and terrific retirement. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are still awake out there. Some of what I'm going to say is a little bit redundant to what Paul's already discussed, but it's very important. So I think it's okay if you hear some of it again. We believe everyone should have a financial plan. Any one of us may have various goals, but every one of us needs to plan for retirement. That's something all of us have in common, as you can tell from the great turnout we have for this meeting. A financial plan will show you if you have enough money to meet all of your goals, your financial goals, most especially retirement. When you're done being a carpenter, you want to maintain your standard of living, meaning the lifestyle you've worked so hard all of these years to achieve for yourself and your family. You won't have a lot of free time, but less money to enjoy it. Even worse, you don't want to outlive your savings. Working with a good advisor, guided by a financial plan, can make sure you are able to enjoy your retirement the way you want, while having your nest egg protected too. The peace of mind that brings to clients is why Tom and I love being financial planners and investment advisors. We're very happy to be speaking with you today. We believe in utilizing a comprehensive and collaborative approach. We will look at the client's entire situation and take a holistic This means we consider all of your assets, expenses, liabilities, time horizons, lifestyle, legacy goals, as well as the fluctuations in the market to grow and protect your savings. Everything must fit together, and we do our best to avoid any unintended consequences caused by only looking at one part of the problem. In terms of how advisors get compensated, some are fee-based and some are commission-based, and some may be a combination of both. It is important for good advisors to collaborate with the client's other professional service providers, such as attorneys and accountants. Legal matters and tax decisions can make a big difference in your financial situation. We want to make sure that accounts are titled correctly and there has been proper estate planning. We also want to make sure we are utilizing the proper taxable and tax-free investment vehicles. Good financial advisors should be able to work well with those other experts so that a client's total situation is set up for success. It might make sense to see what a written formal financial plan actually looks like. Therefore, I've included some key pages taken from a sample financial plan. Let's take a minute to go over some of these and get you more familiar with how a financial plan is, the blueprint for a great retirement. So we have Timothy and Susan Smith. They're both 55 years old right now, and they'd like to retire at 65 for Tim and 63 for Susan. And as you can see listed on this slide, since Susan's going to retire first and they're the same age, they're going to have to supplement their income by about $29,883. And then when they're both retired, they're going to need to have expenses of around $69,073. So what the financial plan does is it pulls all your assets, whether it's Social Security, your pension, or your portfolio income, and it says, okay, what am I going to have left each year? And on the final slide, you'll see a cash flow chart, but just going through this particular client, they need healthcare, they want to buy a car every 10 years, they would like to travel and pay for their son's college. We always separate discretionary spending from non-discretionary. That's why everything's separated on this slide. Because if you have a 2008, you're most likely not going to travel or buy a car. So the expectations and concerns are really important because a lot of times spouses don't discuss these things. So when we have clients and doing the financial plan with us, we always ask each individual to express this so that they're both on the same page. Then we go through their net worth. In this particular case, Susan and Tim have $560,000 in investment assets. They have $550,000 in properties, and then they have liabilities of $270,000, which brings their net worth to about $840,000. Then we talk about their asset allocation, and as they're getting closer to retirement, we might actually make them more conservative. And then we do, like Paul said, a bunch of different scenarios. If they decide maybe they want to retire a little sooner or spend a little bit less on travel and more on something else, buy a beach house. These are what we'll run through these type of scenarios and show them what the plan looked like. And finally, this is the cash flow analysis that shows what asset is going into your situation and out. And the final for each year that you live up until you're projected to end. So you can see that Tim and Susan were successful in their plan and that they actually end up with a little over 1.1 million to leave for their legacies. So hopefully that gives you a good snapshot of what an actual financial plan looks like.